Hello, everybody. Today I'm going to take about 15 minutes and provide a quick overview on your leadership paper, which is due on the 15th of December. Let's first begin with the requirements. So this requires you to answer two essay questions, two of eight, that you must go through and write a response. However, you must answer essay number 4. So you can choose from the remaining 7 for the second essay that you'd like to talk about. Each essay is a total of 2 pages in length. So when you do 2 essays, you're going to have a total of 4 pages. Do not exceed 4 pages. However, this does not include your title page or your endnotes, which goes to my next point. I recommend that you use endnotes, and so your references are at the very end, and it's very clear that 4 pages are your text and do not include your references, which gives you more page space to write your responses are. You only have to use a bibliography if you're using information or references outside of AOC. So if it's not found in Blackboard, you have to write a bibliography in addition to your endnotes. It's really important that you allot time for this assignment because it is 52% of your grade. And again, as a reminder, it's due on the 15th of December, no later than 23:59. When you are done with your paper and ready to submit it, please do not email it to me. Rather, go to the L400 assignment tab, click under essay exam. Step 2, it will talk to you about how to upload your assignment. And step 3 are the actual links to create and upload your actual Word document. Please don't send me a PDF. Go ahead and upload a Word document. So now let's talk about the questions that we are giving you to answer. Like I said before, there are a total of 8. Here are questions 1 through 4, and we're going to focus on question number 4 because that is a question that every student must answer in addition to one more. And I want to spend some time on this essay question because some students forget elements of it, and it will give you an idea of how you're going to answer your essays. This specific essay is about commander's visualization. And what we want you to do is talk about the relationship between situational understanding, which I will refer to as SU, and commander's visualization, which is CV, and the challenges of building those in LISCO. And it also wants you to provide 2 examples from the Major General Coda case study. So you ought not use examples from another case study. Stick to the one that's in 404, which is about Major General Coda and the Hurtgen Forest. But now I want to break it down even more for you so you know what we're looking for. So the first thing we want you to do is clearly and explain the relationship between SU and CV. What is it? And then this is what trips many students up. They forget to talk about this. How does judgment play a role in achieving commander's visualization? I would say 50% of the students fail to talk about judgment. So make sure that you're not only talking about what they are, what is SU and CV, but in the relationship between the two, but also how does judgment play in there? And then it wants you to clearly and logically explain the challenges of building SU and CV. How do you build and maintain it in LISCO? So there's a couple things you've got to talk about in this one as well. The relationship between building and maintaining SU and CV and LISCO. Both of these you have to talk about large-scale ground combat operations. And then you've got to provide 2 examples. And I'm going to talk about it in the next couple of slides of how do you provide these examples. Using this example, I think you should provide an example after SU and CV, the relationship, and then you should provide an example after you talk about developing and maintaining CV and SU. But we'll talk more about that in a couple slides. So the key takeaway is everybody has to answer this essay question. There are 2 parts that you're going to explain, and then you're going to provide examples in each of those parts to not exceed more than 2 pages. And then once you get done with that, you can choose one of these other 3, or you can choose the remaining 4 questions, essays that we provide for you. So in order to really kind of break this down even further, I want to show you the grading rubric, which is over here on the right-hand side, and how we're going to approach grading these papers. So there are 2 separate questions. So essay question number 4, and in this case, we chose essay question number 2. Each one of them is worth 45 points. So I'm going to talk about essay number 4 again, because everybody has to answer this one. So when you're looking at the rubric, the first thing we want you to do is clearly explain point 1. And this one, again, is to explain the relationship between SU and CV. And don't forget to talk about judgment. The second thing we want you to talk about is clearly explaining the challenges of building and maintaining SU and CV in LISCO. And then we want you to provide an example for each. So again, I want you to provide an example from the Major Journal Coda case study about the relationship between SU and CV in judgment. So go back into that case study, and one of these leaders, either negatively or positively, how did they develop SU and CV? And how did that impact their judgment? That's example number 1. And then in the second point, you're going to look at another example where from the Major Journal Coda case study where they had challenges of building and maintaining SU and CV. And so then you will have clearly and logically explained point 1, point 2, and provided 2 examples, 1 example each. And that is worth 45 points. And then when you look at your second essay, we're going to have you do exactly the same process. In this example, this is essay number 2, and it's from the L400 case study about complexity. Here again, we want you to clearly explain the elements, a Sinfine framework, and how to apply the cause and effect relationships. And then we want you to clearly explain the role of judgment in decision making. And then we want you to provide an example of each from the L402 lesson. And then the final part of the rubric this kind of gives you some more details about each one of those 45 points that we're looking at. For example, when you're looking at the mastery of subject and analysis for point 1, we want to make sure that you're thorough and you identify and explain the relevant key concepts. And that you help create new knowledge or introduce new ideas. Okay, and then your evidence is that example that we talked about. And then you're going to do the same thing for your second point. And then down here, it's all about completeness. Your answer has to be complete with 2 examples, and they have to directly support the core concepts within those lessons. And then here's the last part of the grading rubric, which is about completeness. This is what we're looking for each of the questions as well. Now let's go over some TTPs. The first thing that I recommend that you do is develop an outline. It will help guide your writing because it is going to be such a concise requirement. It will prevent you from going down rabbit holes. And so I'm going to walk you through this outline that we have over here using essay number 8, which is about morally courageous followers and the darker shades of blue case study. So the first thing I want you to think about when you write your outline is your introduction, which is basically your thesis. When you write your thesis, please use the prompt that we give you. You can, in essence, reword the question that we provide you to write your thesis. And let me give you an example. So this question wants you to explain the relationships between power and the demonstration of moral courage by followers, and how commanders can set the conditions for morally courageous, organizations. So what I did is I just simply reworded that question to make my thesis. A relationship exists between power and the demonstration of moral courage, and commanders can set the conditions for moral courage within an organization by doing this. And so that is your thesis. All I did was reword the question. The reason I think that you need to have that thesis right up front in the very beginning of your essay, because you're telling the reader what you're writing about. It's very clear. Many times I'll get into students' papers and I have no idea what question they're answering until the second or third paragraph. That's not a good thing. So put that thesis right up front and use the question that we give you. And then your next part of your outline is you're going to address each one of your questions. So here you will see question number 1. They want you to clearly and logically explain how position, power, and personal power influence moral courage. So my topic sentence reads, positional power and personal power influence moral courage by, and you describe what it is. And in this case, because there's 2 different elements to the question, I provided 2 examples, and I'm going to put that next in my outline. I'm going to give an example of positional power in darker shades of blue and explain what the situation is. And I'm going to do the same thing for personal power. So with this one, I'm going to have 2 examples. And then the next thing I'm going to do in my outline is talk about the second question. And this one's about clearly and logically explain the commander's role in setting the conditions for the demonstration of moral courage. So my topic sentence in the outline is the commander's role in setting conditions for the demonstration of moral courage is this, and I'm going to describe what it is. And then again, I'm going to provide an example where the commander set the conditions for the demonstration of moral courage using darker shades of blue. And then I'm going to write my conclusion. I'm going to restate my thesis statement, and then I'm going to explain to the reader why does it matter that the relationship between power and demonstration of moral courage is important, and the commander's role. Why does that even matter? And that will be the end of my essay, not to exceed 2 pages. So I've already talked about this. Use the prompt to develop your thesis and make sure you answer the question you're being asked. So many times students will forget to actually answer one of these questions. So if you put it in an outline, you will not forget. Or they'll forget to provide an example. Again, if you put it in an outline, you'll make sure that you have an example, at least 2 of them. When you're writing about your case study, specifically in your examples or even in your explaining what these concepts are, you've got to set the stage for the reader. So you cannot assume that they've read Darker Shades of Blue. So if you're going to say Lieutenant Commander so-and-so in Darker Shades of Blue exemplified positional power and did this, briefly, a sentence, explain who Lieutenant Commander so-and-so is and how and what he did. So you're going to have to provide, probably 2 to 3 sentences and set the stage for your examples. And then finally, you have very little space, so make sure that you stick to your outline, keep it simple and concise, and edit your work. Like I recommended for all of your writing, use spelling, grammar checks, have a friend read it, and make sure that it makes sense. All right, next, we're going to talk about Turabian. You are required to use references and citations in this paper. So what I've done here is I put together 2 online tools that you can use when you're using Turabian. But really, ST22-2 describes how to use Turabian and has examples from Command and General Staff College, Blackboard, CVIs, and how you can integrate them into your writing. And I've also, in your writing references folder, in Blackboard student folders, also given you lots of examples of how to write and use citations under Turabian. The key takeaway, use numbers, not Roman numerals. And again, use endnotes. And so you can get 2 full pages of text when you're writing each of your essays. So ladies and gentlemen, that's all I have. Reference your leadership paper. You will have time to ask any questions of the assignment itself or clarification on this video at the end of each class. but I would like to remind you before I wrap this up, your paper is worth 52% of your grade. Please allocate some time to write your paper, set it aside, revise, revise, revise to make sure it's a quality product and that it is due on the 15th of December. I look forward to reading your papers and thank you for your time, and we'll talk about more of this in class. Thank you, everybody.